So thanks everyone for tuning in to learn more about the new Nicollet redevelopment project. Today we're going over the recommended new Nicollet Ave concept layout plan and the recommended public space framework. So our agenda for today is that Kelsey and I will introduce ourselves. We'll go over the project in general. We'll go over what we heard during the engagement, and then we'll introduce the recommended public space concept and the recommended street layout concept. And then we'll wrap up and talk about next steps. My name is Adrienne Bachheim. I'm a principal city planner and designer with the Community Planning and Economic Development Department in the city of Minneapolis, and I'm heading up the public space team.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelsey Fote. I'm a senior transportation planner in Public Works. I am part of the transportation planning and programming group within Public Works, and I am working on the new Nicollet concept layout. So just a little bit of context about the project. The city now owns the former Kmart site, which is shown in blue on the right. It's about 10 acres sandwiched between the Midtown Greenway, Lake Street, First Avenue, and Blaisdell Avenue. The overall plan is to reconnect Nicollet Avenue from Lake Street to Cecil Newman Lane or 29th Street to the north, and then develop the remainder of the site into a high-density walkable mixed-use district. The project has several main goals. These goals were developed during public engagement between August of 2022 and January of 2023. Those 5 main goals are to reconnect people and places, to build for who's here, to develop a site that is able to allow people to live, work, shop, and play here, to build a safe, equitable, and sustainable transportation network as part of the project, and to design safe and healthy communities through both of our work on the street and on the new development. Looking at the project timeline, so we talked about the phase 1 engagement that was conducted in 22 and 2023. We are now in phase 2. The main topics of our round of engagement is to focus on the new Nicollet concept layout plan and a public space framework. We've had several touch points with the community leading up to this point. We talked about uses and priorities for the new street and the potential public spaces on the site. And then we talked about different concept design options with the public and got some feedback on those. And we are now in this third part of our phase 2 of public engagement to bring out concept recommendations for both the new Nicollet Avenue and the public space framework and get some feedback on those. After this round of engagement, the plan is to move into our third phase of public engagement to talk more specifically about the development itself and what happens on the site. And then we are anticipating starting construction on the road and the bridge for the new Nicollet starting in 2025.
Phase 2, part 1 of engagement sought to get more specific and prioritize the goals from phase 1, so they were reflected in the design of the public space on the redeveloped site and the new street. Public space questions asked participants to prioritize activities and features and facilities, as well as the size of gathering spaces for the site. Street questions asked participants what should be prioritized on the new street and how to address the narrow trail section on the Midtown Greenway between Nicollet Avenue and Blaisdell. Engagement methods included pop-up events at different locations and neighborhood outreach. There was an open house and an online survey in 3 different languages. Engagement targeted the 4 neighborhoods adjacent to the former Kmart site, and that's Whittier, Lyndale, West Phillips, and Central. In phase 2, part 2, project staff informed and engaged the community about potential design concepts for the new Nicollet redevelopment, public space, and streets. And given the priorities from part 1, there were 4 different street concepts and 3 public space concepts that were presented to the public for feedback. And community members provided input on each concept, ranking them on a scale of 1 to 5 stars. For public space, the following questions were asked. First, what activities are most important to have on the site? And the top 3 answers to that question were flexible space, like a market or other types of spaces, community gathering space, and community gardens. The second question was what useful features or facilities should be included in this space? And the top three answers to that question were shade trees, open green space, and gardens, like ecological gardens or pollinator gardens. And then the third question was, what size community gathering space is most important to you? And the top scores for that question were small, medium sizes, and then like a promenade space for walking. Emerging from community feedback were 9 overarching themes, which served as guiding principles for the 3 design concepts that were developed for the next round of engagement. That included flexible public space, reinforcing the Midtown Greenway connection, uplifting community gathering, bringing in nature, prioritizing health and wellness, empowering public art, celebrating new Nicollet Avenue, improving safety, and respect and equity. The design team developed 3 different concepts for public space on the site based on previous community feedback and themes. These concepts aimed to explore how amenities and activities could be arranged to create distinct experiences. All 3 concepts included space for recreation and community gathering, as well as walking paths. And 2 of the concepts, Concept B and Concept C, included bikeways. So Concept A is showing a linear park along the Greenway. This celebrates the Greenway as an amenity to this area. Concept B shows a linear park along Nicollet Avenue, celebrating Nicollet Avenue with this long linear park, as well as the pedestrian promenade along the street there. And then Concept C has a square park with a diagonal connection through the site, which would be for walking and biking access through the site. The project team asked community members to rate the 3 design concepts from 1 to 5 stars. We used a blind voting method at larger community events, which you can see pictured here on this slide. All the public space concepts rated very well and within just a few points of each other, but each one had different aspects that were favored more than others. So overall, Concept A was a little less favored because the park is split in 2 by the street. And then there were also concerns that the park might feel more private because it's right next to some future buildings. Concept B was less favored because of how close it is to the street and the narrow feel of the space and the potential it has to be shaded out by future buildings. Concept C received the highest scores of the 3 concepts, and this was mostly because of the flexibility of this more typical shaped park and the size of the park. A lot of people also liked the unique feel of the diagonal walking and biking route. The recommended public space framework includes 6 key strategies for how this site can create meaningful and equitable public spaces for the communities it will serve. The first is to make a public park next to the Greenway for access, visibility, and safety. The second is to connect people walking and biking through the site with a mid-block east-west connection. Third is to design a public space or design public gathering spaces to be flexible to support many different activities. To promote public health through shade trees, open green space, and garden. To find opportunities for additional small gathering spaces throughout the site, especially in locations that support businesses. And then finally, to create welcoming entries on Lake Street and the Greenway through public art and architecture. Based on feedback and technical analysis, city staff are recommending that the city move forward with public space design concept C with added flexibility for future development. The diagonal shape of the promenade might be difficult for future developers who want to build on the southwest corner. To address this, the recommended concept adds more flexibility on the west side. So the east-west path through the site will connect Lake and Blaisdell to Nicollet Avenue, and developers will be allowed to adjust the path layout in different ways. This flexibility will help developers design their parcels to meet practical needs like vehicle access and trash removal. This concept includes 5 main features. This concept includes a proposed new Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board park. This highly visible public park will be located along the Greenway and will be open to all and provide space for flexible community gathering and recreation. The detailed design of this park will be determined through a later planning process with the park board. The concept also includes a walking and biking connection through the site, which will directly connect the intersection of Lake Street and Blaisdell up to the park and also to the future relocated Midtown Greenway ramp entrance, which will be on First Avenue. The exact location of this route will be decided through later processes. There's also a mid-block crosswalk across Nicollet Avenue, which will allow safe walking and biking across New Nicollet. Also included in the concept are recommended locations for possible park board storefront recreation space. This is a way to introduce indoor community and recreational space in a mixed-use building on the site that the park board would rent rather than own. So this is something the park board is exploring and something that would be determined in a future process with their staff. And then finally, there could be additional opportunities for other green or gathering spaces on the site that would be introduced by future development, and those locations could be determined later. So city staff will continue to work with park board, and park board staff will use this document as a starting point for the planning of a park at this location.
The first part of phase 2 of engagement, we asked the public about priorities for the street. We had several choices for them to select from, and overall, people overwhelmingly chose a pedestrian-friendly New Nicollet Avenue. People prioritized boulevards and green space in the street design. They wanted to see really nice, lush green spaces. One thing we heard a lot about in this round of engagement was about the need to provide bike infrastructure that connects to the greenway through the area. On the new Nicollet, there's nothing planned on to the north or south for Nicollet Avenue. And so there are existing bike networks on both First Avenue and Blaisdell on either side of the site, and a lot of interest in connecting those better to the Midtown Greenway. People also talked a lot about the trail section on the Midtown Greenway between Blaisdell and Nicollet. There's a pinch point there with the current ramp connection from Nicollet down into the Midtown Greenway. So they wanted to see that widened and have a better bike connection that connects directly into the city's Bikeway network. This slide shows a little bit of how the network connects around the site for people biking in particular. You can see where the current ramp connects in off of Nicollet. The proposal with our project is to move the ramp to First Avenue. This will allow us to address that pinch point that is located on the Midtown Greenway Trail between Nicollet Avenue and Blaisdell, so we can widen that for people walking and biking in the Midtown Greenway. It also allows us to connect that trail ramp directly to the city's Bikeway Network on First Avenue, and it allows us to provide an ADA compliant ramp for people who may be in wheelchairs to get down safely into the Midtown Greenway. In our second round of phase 2 engagement, we brought out 4 different design concepts to the public to get their feedback on which of these should be used for the new Nicollet Avenue. The first concept is a street that is open to all types of vehicles, has wide pedestrian and green spaces, and limited parking along the block. Concept 2 is a street that is open to all types of vehicles and has a concrete median down the center of the block. And concept 3 is similar to concept 2 in that it incorporates that concrete median down the middle of the block, but instead trades some of the parking resources for more green space. And then concept 4 is a street that's open only to transit and emergency vehicles and has also wide pedestrian and green spaces. Community members were asked to rank each of the design concepts on a scale of 1 to 5 stars and identify which features they liked or didn't like about each concept. This slide shows the results of that ranking. Overall, concept 1 and concept 4, so the street that was open to all types of vehicles and the street that was open to transit and emergency vehicles only, were the preferred concepts. The concepts with the concrete median down the center did not get a lot of good scores in this round of engagement, so we concentrated a lot of our analysis on concepts 1 and concepts 4. This is a map that's highlighting some of the key changes that have happened in this area or are coming in this area. There's a lot of exciting projects that have happened and that are coming. There's recently the Whittier-Lyndale Bikeway was completed that adds a new 2-way bikeway to Blaisdell to the west of the site. There's a new exit from 35W that exits onto Lake Street, which was built out fairly recently. There's new projects coming on First Avenue. That one will be reconstructed starting in 2024. We'll provide some key safety and connectivity improvements for people walking, biking, taking transit, and driving in the area. There's been a number of Vision Zero safety geared improvements on 31st Street to the south of the site. And there will be new improvements coming for the B-Line bus rapid transit upgrade that is going to convert the Route 21 into the Metro B-Line along Lake Street. Some of those include enhanced stops and shelters along the route. It also includes converting some of the existing travel lanes on Lake Street into transit-only lanes to help with speed reliability for that transit line. There's also a number of new developments that are either happened or popping up in the area. Carmel Mall to the west of the site was expanded recently. Eat Street Crossing to the north of the site is fully operational now, and coming in the future, there is a new development at the Wells Fargo site at 3030 Nicollet that will provide more housing in the area and also reopen many of the Wells Fargo facilities that were there previously. And then also a housing development coming at Simpson Housing to the north of 28th. The next 3 slides compare Concept 4, which was our transit-only street, with Concept 1, which is a street that's open to all vehicles, to identify which concept better meets our project goals. One of our key project goals is about pedestrian and bicycle connectivity and safety, and this takes a closer look at one intersection that would be impacted if we were to go with Concept 4. This intersection that we're looking at is First Avenue at Cecil Newman Lane. First Avenue is being reconstructed this year with a new 2-way protected bikeway on the west side of the block. It will also be the spot where we reconnect the Midtown Greenway ramp so that people walking and biking can access First Avenue directly from the Midtown Greenway. So we expect to see a lot more people walking and biking, especially along this area. If we were to use Concept 4 as our recommended concept, those vehicles that are not transit or emergency only vehicles would need to continue to circulate around the site. That means that they would often use First Avenue and turn onto Cecil Newman, which turns across our new 2-way bikeway and our pedestrian facilities there at that crossing. It also means that we need to allow and design that crossing to allow for large trucks to make that turning movement. Nicollet Avenue is a truck route. Many of those trucks serve many of the restaurants and services along Eat Street and on the larger Nicollet corridor. So it's a key connection point to make sure that those freight vehicles can access Nicollet Avenue. With Concept 4, those vehicles, including trucks and small passenger vehicles, would need to turn across our new 2-way bikeway and sidewalk facility at Cecil Newman and First. One of the key pieces of our analysis in comparing Concepts 1 and Concept 4 was to look at a traffic and transit speed and reliability analysis. We did this by collecting new traffic counts of how many vehicles were using the area in 2023. We assume that those vehicles we'd see a reduction over time in the number of vehicles out in the area based on city policies and mode shift goals. We assume that there would be some new trips that would be coming to the new development, visiting housing or going to the different shops. We assumed that 1/3 of those would drive by vehicle and 2/3 of those would be by walking, biking, and taking transit. Since this is a really transit, biking, and pedestrian-rich area, there's a lot of great amenities, a lot of good ways to connect to the site. And we use that analysis to compare Concept 1, which is where Nicollet is open to all types of vehicles, and Concept 4, where Nicollet is open to transit emergency vehicles only. What we found in our analysis is that with Concept 4, where the block is closed to everyone except emergency vehicles and transit vehicles, that traffic routing around the site starts to impact transit vehicles coming northbound on Nicollet. There's large queues of general purpose traffic trying to get north on Nicollet to turn right onto Lake Street to get to First Avenue to get around the site. And that frankly slows down and delays transit vehicles as they're trying to get to the new block of Nicollet. So overall, we're seeing a greater benefit for transit vehicles in reaching the new site with Concept 1 versus Concept 4. Another key piece of the analysis that we looked at is how drivers or how people driving would access potential new destinations on the site. We know from some earlier policy and planning work that we are trying to focus a lot of these potential access points off of First Avenue and Blaisdell. so that we can prioritize a lot of those key pedestrian amenities and greening space along Nicollet Avenue. With the number of one-way streets that are around the Kmart site. So if you're thinking about First Avenue is a one-way northbound, Cecil Newman is a one-way westbound, 29th is a one-way westbound, and Blaisdell is a one-way southbound. If you're coming from the south and trying to access a new access point on First Avenue, you have to go around the majority of the site in order to access that point. And the same if you're coming from the south and going on First to Cecil Newman to 29th around to Blaisdell. Overall, this adds longer trip lengths to people coming to access the site. If we go with the concept 4, which keeps the street open only to transit vehicles and emergency vehicles, then if we use concept 1, which allows for shorter trips for people to get to those potential access points in the future. So overall, what we're recommending as a project team is street concept 1, which provides a street that's open to general purpose traffic, transit, and emergency vehicles. It also includes some spaces for parking that will be ADA compliant and comply with new guidance coming out from ProWag. There are wide spaces for people walking, and there's wide spaces for greening along the corridor. This is a high-level look at our street concept. A few key things to call out. We have some transit advantages for transit moving northbound on Nicollet to get those transit vehicles to the Lake Street intersection and through that Lake Street intersection as quickly and as efficiently as possible. There would be a new transit stop for those transit vehicles on the southeast side of the site where they can drop and pick off passengers. And then would merge back into a general purpose traffic lane ahead of our mid-block crossing that we are coordinating with the public space framework on. As you're looking through the site, again, there are large spaces for people walking and rolling. There are large spaces for greening that will also be used to collect and treat stormwater. There will be a new intersection configuration at 29th, Cecil Newman, and Nicollet Avenue just north of the site to provide easier and more clear ways for people to use the intersection, whether they're walking, biking, taking transit, or driving. It will include a new signal to provide some of that safety and accessibility along the block, and a lot of green spaces spread throughout the two corridors. The next steps for this project after our round of engagement is to bring forward a recommended concept design for the new Nicollet Avenue and public space on the site to the City Council and the Mayor. We expect to do that in spring of 2024. The next phase after this part of the project is to focus on the development itself. So there will be another round of engagement and work that will focus on deciding the development objectives, and also we'll be working behind the scenes on the street design and engineering so that we can build out the new roadway, pedestrian spaces, green spaces, and all the good amenities. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you for joining us. You can find more information on our website at minneapolismn.gov/new-Nicollet. You can also see the recommended concepts there in more detail. Look at next steps. Let us know what you think by emailing us at new-Nicollet-redevelopment@minneapolismn.gov. And we'll talk to you all soon.